My parents cut me off and handed everything to my brother, claiming I didn't need their support. Years later, they came crawling back after he deserted them. I, a 32-year-old woman, always knew my parents never saw me the way they saw Ethan, a 30-year-old man. But knowing is not the same as accepting. I always hoped they'd notice more than the child who didn't need them in me, a fast learner. I would deal with it alone so they could keep overlooking it. Have you ever felt like a ghost in your own family, invisible until they suddenly needed something? I'll tell you, nothing stings quite like realizing you were never truly part of the plan, especially when that realization comes wrapped in a calm, almost indifferent conversation about your parents' will. Can you imagine the gut punch? It started innocently enough. My mom called, her voice as normal as ever, asking me to come over when I had a moment, saying they had something to talk about. I walked into their living room, and it was a scene straight out of a normal Sunday afternoon. Dad buried behind his newspaper, Mom puttering around, the scent of fresh coffee in the air. For a fleeting second, I actually thought, this is nice. Then I sat down, Dad lowered his paper, and that's when it hit me. We've changed the will, he said, not a flicker of emotion. Everything's going to Ethan. I swear, my brain glitched. Everything. I thought I'd misheard, but then my dad just nodded. Their house, their life savings, even the beloved lake house, all of it. For Ethan. My mom, ever the sympathetic one, reached out and gently placed her hand on mine. She explained it so calmly, so rationally. Ethan had promised to take care of them, promised they'd never be alone, that he'd manage things when they got older. And me? Oh God, that question almost choked me. What about me? I managed to ask, barely a whisper. My father smiled, a warm, pleasant smile, as if he was delivering good news. You don't need it, he told me. You've always been so independent. You'll be fine. I just stared at them, my heart pounding, desperately searching their faces for a sign, a joke, a flicker of doubt, a hint of shame. But there was nothing. No hesitation, no regret, just this unwavering conviction that their choice was right, that they understood everything perfectly. And you know what? A part of me just shattered. It wasn't the money, not the house or the lake house. It was the brutal, undeniable truth that I had never been in their plans. Not really. They just assumed I'd always be okay, always independent, always there, but never truly seen. They thought I'd just keep doing my thing, effortlessly. I didn't argue. Couldn't. What was there to say? I just sat there a little longer, watching them, seeing the serene confidence in their eyes. Then I stood up. My mom called out, but I ignored her. I walked out, got into my car, and drove away. I never asked them to reconsider. I never tried to articulate the raw, searing pain that was tearing me apart. What was the point? Their choice was made. Now I'd make mine. I don't know how long I sat in my car outside their house. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe 45. The engine was off, and I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. All the unspoken weight of my life, the confirmation of a truth I'd always pushed away, crashed down on me. I wasn't just not in their plans, I was their guest. Someone they loved in theory, maybe, but never truly considered. I was the responsible, independent daughter who didn't need them. Ethan, the golden child, always needed them more. It was easier for them to build their world around his needs than to acknowledge mine. That was the hardest part, realizing I'd spent years pretending not to care, pretending I didn't need their love as much as Ethan did. But there in my car, swallowing a knot of pure anguish, I finally had to face reality. I always believed if I worked hard, if I proved myself, someone, someday, would choose me. That day, the answer was stark and undeniable. I started the car, and I left. After that day, I just gave up. Not with a bang, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a slow, quiet surrender. I just let go. First, I stopped calling. Then I stopped making excuses for why they never reached out to me. I stopped pretending I didn't notice how quickly I was forgotten when I wasn't actively there. At first, I think they barely noticed the distance. Christmas invitations still came, Impersonal pleasantries were exchanged. My mom would occasionally text, "Hope you're well. Staying busy." She never asked about my mood, my life, my heart. My father never called. I told myself it was fine. I had a good life. I'd built it all myself without their help. A rewarding job, kind colleagues, my own home. But sometimes a quiet, unexpected melancholy would seep in. I remember getting a big promotion at work, and my first instinct was to grab my phone, to share the news, only to realize there was no one to call. Not really. My family wouldn't care. My career, my achievements, they were never seen. Only Ethan's accomplishments were celebrated, his achievements boasted about. I spent my first Christmas alone that year, politely declining their invitation. They didn't even ask why. My absence was just a minor, easily forgotten detail. I sat on my couch that night, wondering if the bright lights of my tiny Christmas tree even realized I was gone. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they did. It didn't matter. I should have known this day would come. I wasn't needed. Not until then. And when they finally did need me, they remembered me so well, it was almost laughable. It started subtly. My mom's texts got a little longer. Just checking in. "You haven't communicated recently." I stayed calm. A week later, another message. She briefly mentioned Ethan's new job, his move out of state. No details, no accusations, just typical, superficial conversation. I still didn't react. Then Dad called. I watched his name flash on my screen, letting it ring out, then sending it to voicemail. My mom tried again the next day. "We want to see you," her text read. Her voice, when she called again, sounded strange, hesitant. "Call me when you have time." My gut screamed, ignore it. But a foolish part of me, that tiny ember that still longed for what I'd never had, hesitated. Something significant was happening, so I called. My mom answered on the first ring, breathless with relief. She asked how I was, said she missed me. Every word felt carefully chosen, unfamiliar. I was genuinely confused. I hadn't heard such phrases from her in years. Then she finally said it. "Could you visit? Your father and I were wondering, for dinner maybe." "Why?" I asked, my voice flat. A beat of silence. Then, quieter. "Times have been tough recently." She didn't explicitly say it. She wanted me to start the conversation, to prompt her to explain. I didn't, but she kept pushing. Ethan had left. She explained that he and his wife had relocated, too far to visit often. My parents had thought it was temporary, that Ethan would eventually keep his promise once they settled in. But he hadn't. He barely called. He was distant, rushed, busy with his new duties. They had poured everything into him, helped him buy his first home, paid for his education, his wedding. And after receiving it all, he had nothing left to give them. My parents, who had believed for years that Ethan would protect them in their old age, who had rewritten their entire will for him, trusted him completely. Now they understood their mistake. I listened in silence as my mom tried to make it sound like they hadn't been completely blindsided, like they hadn't just admitted they never imagined I'd stick around. I let them talk. I let them ask. After telling me about Ethan, my mom tentatively, anxiously, asked if I might come over more often, help them with a few things. I almost laughed. It wasn't funny, though. It was heartbreaking. Their choice was made years ago. They kept choosing Ethan. And now here they were approaching me, expecting me to be their backup plan, like some forgotten insurance policy they'd suddenly remembered. I let the silence hang. Then I asked her the same question I'd asked years ago, the one that had clarified my position then. Why me? Another pause. My mother gasped, surprised. "You mean what?" "You made it clear that Ethan was the one meant to care for you," I said, my voice steady. "That I wasn't. So why me? Why now?" She searched desperately for a response, but there wasn't one that could undo what they'd done. I let her sit in her silence. Then, in the calmest voice I could muster, I said, "I hope you figured out." but it won't be with my help. And I hung up. I stopped answering their calls after that. I truly thought that was the end of it. I expected my silence to be a clear, undeniable answer, a closed door. But I consistently underestimated their ability to ignore reality when it didn't suit them. It started small, as usual. A week later, my mom texted, "We should talk." Calmly, I ignored it. My father called, twice in one day, then again the next. All went to voicemail. Each communication felt more urgent than the last. My mother tried guilt. "You're being unreasonable. Families don't turn their backs on each other." My father tried anger. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat us." And then my personal favorite, once they realized I wasn't budging, "We need you to come home." Home? As if I'd ever truly called that place home. I deleted the messages, moved on with my day, but they persisted. A month later, they showed up at my door. My mother looked smaller, frilier than I remembered. My father stood behind her, his face rigid, fists clenched, ready for a fight. They weren't welcome. "What do you want?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe, not moving to let them in. My mother sighed, as if I was being difficult. "They just wanted to talk," she said. "We are talking," I replied. She paused, then confessed they were struggling. Financially, emotionally. The money and years they'd poured into Ethan's dreams had drained them. They never saved because they truly believed he would provide. Without that safety net, they were drowning. I said nothing, just let her words hang in the air. My father's voice was gruff when he spoke. He admitted they'd made mistakes, been unfair to me, but insisted I shouldn't just abandon them. "Why not?" I asked. It caught him off guard. He blinked, as if the question had never occurred to him. I reminded them they had abandoned me years ago, focusing solely on Ethan, ignoring me. Now that their strategy had failed, they expected me to fix it. "Not interested," I said. My mother's face crumpled. She tried to appeal to emotion. "We're your parents. Families should care for one another." I just looked at her. When did you ever treat me like Ethan? When was I ever prioritized? She had no answer. She knew the truth. They tried everything in the following weeks. Pity, guilt, manipulation. "We raised you. We gave you everything. You're really going to let us struggle while you live so comfortably?" "Ethan would help if he could, but he has his own family now. You're the only one we have left." None of it worked, because the reality remained. They weren't looking for a daughter. They wanted a nanny, a safety net. I wouldn't be it. I blocked their numbers. It was the only way to stop the onslaught. It hurt, yes, even after everything. Losing them felt like mourning something that never truly existed. But I was finally prioritizing myself. And that was enough. Months passed. Peaceful months. Months of freedom. I thought they had finally given up. But one night I came home from work, and there they were on my doorstep. I should have known better. My mother was even thinner, her face etched with worry. My father stood beside her, his expression a mix of anger and anguish. No sighing for me this time. I wasn't mad. I felt nothing. I walked up to my door, unlocked it, and simply faced them. "What do you want?" My mother spoke immediately, as if terrified I'd slam the door if she hesitated. They were struggling more. Money was running out even faster. Ethan had declined to help. She exclaimed, still unable to grasp it. He said he had his own family to tend to. My father mumbled bitterly. He said we should have considered this sooner. I nodded. It made perfect sense. Then I spoke. In the calmest, most even tone I'd ever used with them, I said what I had wanted to say for a long, long time. "Trust Ethan." A profound quiet followed. I watched their faces crumble as understanding dawned. I wouldn't fix it. I wouldn't save them. My mother tried again, her voice shaking. Emphasizing that Ethan had to do his job. "So what does that mean for me?" I tilted my head. She tried to respond but couldn't, because it didn't mean anything for me. It never has. I reminded them, you made your decision. You invested in Ethan. You trusted him with your future. Now, you're coping with the effects. This isn't my fault. My father, who always bristled first, exploded. He called me cruel, said I was enjoying their pain, that no genuine daughter would act this way. I just raised an eyebrow. And a genuine parent, I countered, would not abandon one child for another. A real parent wouldn't cut me out, shut me out, and then expect me to return when things got tough. That's not how it works. You don't ignore me for years and then expect me to fix your issues. My mother inhaled nervously, trying to look sympathetic instead of guilty. This was not what they expected. I simply nodded, doing nothing. Then I whispered, I don't want to see your faces anymore. It wasn't an eruption of rage. The anger wasn't spontaneous. The truth was just simple. They had offered me no love, no support, no relationship worth keeping. They came because they needed something from me, not because they wanted affection or family. That was just desperation. And I wasn't interested. My father's face twisted as if he wanted to say more, but I cut him off. Go ahead and cry to the extended family, I told them. I don't care. This family was never truly close to me. If they heard about it, they'd shake their heads, text me asking what happened, because deep down they always knew. Whether they openly backed me or not, they never truly cared for me either. We all kept our distance. So, my parents' sob stories wouldn't work. They wouldn't make me clean up their mess. Someone who had always been rejected wouldn't suddenly sympathize with them. They were wrong to think they could emotionally blackmail me into caring. I didn't want their approval. Not from them, not from anyone. I watched them. The slow, awful realization settled on their faces. This was it. They couldn't change my mind. My mother cried. My father slumped. But I persisted. I didn't soften as they finally turned and walked away, my mother casting one timid glance back. My life was peaceful for months after that. No urgent knocks on my door. No emotional blackmail. No distant relatives calling to accuse me of abandoning my poor parents. Ethan was almost forgotten. Almost. Then I saw his name on my phone one night. I just stared. Ethan, my brother. Not a childhood friend, but a stranger with my blood. I sent it to voicemail, ignored the second and the third. After the fourth call, my curiosity, against my better judgment, got the best of me. I picked up. A soft, timid voice said hello. I leaned against my kitchen counter, arms crossed. I wouldn't ease his burden. A weak laugh escaped him. They said it was long. I stayed silent. He asked again how life was. Fine, I said, short and sharp. He paused, maybe expecting more. I gave him nothing. Finally, he sighed. I wouldn't say we were close, he began, but we are family. Family. Coming from him, it was hilarious. I listened while he danced around the real reason he called. Our parents. He'd heard they were struggling, felt terrible about the outcome. His half-hearted shame didn't interest me. You want what? I cut through his BS. Silence. Then he confessed. Our parents had asked his in-laws for help. Apparently, they'd exhausted every other route, even knocking on doors they'd never visited. Ethan's wife was unhappy. Her family even more so. His in-laws had made it brutally clear they were not a charity, and Ethan was an adult with responsibilities. He was calling me. I could hear it in his cautious tone, his careful phrasing, his pathetic attempt to make it sound like he was looking out for them, not dumping them on me. They're still our parents, he mumbled. They raised us. Raised us? From my perspective, they hadn't raised me. I told him I wasn't interested. He tried again, saying it wasn't about money, that being near them might help. Where was the empathy? I shot back. When they cut me out of there years ago. Where was the family when they focused only on you and ignored me? I reminded him we were never close, that I wasn't hurt by his actions because we were just acquaintances who happened to live in the same house for a few years, not brothers. I held firm. This isn't a family tragedy, Ethan. It's not a sad arrangement I'm worrying about. They're living with the decisions they made, because they made them. He fell silent. I knew he wanted to argue that things weren't that simple, but deep down he knew they were. He took a deep breath. I understand, he said. I didn't expect much from you. You're getting nothing from me, I replied. Great. He grumbled about how cold I was, how I used to be different. I almost laughed again. I haven't changed, I assured him. I just quit pretending. I disconnected the call. I didn't even block him. It wasn't necessary. He wouldn't call again. My first step after hanging up with Ethan was just to sit in silence, letting the conversation drift away like smoke. I knew then why I needed to leave this place. Unlike my parents, I had a future, and it wasn't here. Weeks earlier, a business opportunity had popped up in another state. My life could completely change with this big move. At first, I was reluctant, the drastic shift, selling my home, starting fresh. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt natural. Too many negative memories clung to this place. I'd bought this house years ago as a sanctuary, a space of my own. Now, it felt like a waiting room, a constant reminder of people who never truly belonged in my life. I decided to leave. My real estate agent came the next day, gushing about the property's condition and market value. I barely listened. I had moved on. It was just a house. My mind was already in a new city, planning a new career, a new life. When we discussed the listing price, I just wanted it done, no matter what. Within days, the paperwork was finalized. Then the packing began. I only took what I needed. Everything else I sold, donated, or gave away. I wanted a clean slate. Each item I boxed up felt like shedding another layer of the past. I left behind the furniture I'd bought specifically to host family because I no longer needed it. For years, I'd held on to things, hoping they might fill the void of affection I'd never received. Now, I knew they could be replaced. I packed framed photographs of my solo travels, my adventures, and I threw away anything connected to my parents. Only one thing remained, telling a few key people. My close friends were first. They were delighted, supportive, understanding. They knew I needed this. I considered notifying my extended family, not because I owed them anything, but because I wanted them to know I was done. I sent a brief, collective statement. I was moving out of state, selling my house, and wouldn't be around anymore. The reactions were predictable. Where are you going? Why so quickly? Some polite well wishes, some not so polite jabs, and a few guilt-tripping letters, mostly from older relatives, about family unity and my rashness. I ignored them. Why should I care what they thought now? They never fought for me before. I didn't know them any better. Then my parents found out. Ethan, or perhaps another family member, must have told them. But another knock on my door made that irrelevant. When the moving truck finally arrived, I felt light. Not scared, not sad. I didn't open the window, but I watched from inside. They lingered, they knocked, they waited. They hoped. Then they left, just like I would for good. My freedom was worth more than anything they could have ever put in a will. I wasn't carrying anyone else's expectations anymore, or hoping for an acceptance that would never come. Ethan contacted me again, just after I moved in. I briefly thought about ignoring it, but something stopped me. His wife was pregnant, he said, and our parents. They'd showed up at his door with their bags. Selling their house, no savings, they expected Ethan, their golden child, the one they'd given everything to, the one they'd rewritten their will for, to take them in. But Ethan, the son who vowed to protect them, wasn't so obedient anymore. Their expectations were suddenly harder to handle with a wife, a baby on the way, and his own responsibilities. He didn't outright beg for aid, but his message was a frustrated, pity-laden plea. They were pressuring him, he said. He was overwhelmed, didn't know what to do. It wasn't my problem. I almost laughed out loud. It never was. I typed back simply, "You wanted to be their only kid. You are." Then, finally, I blocked his number. And that was truly the end of it. What would you have done if your family had tried to rewrite your future, only to come crawling back when their chosen path failed? Have you ever had to draw such a hard line to protect your peace? Tell me what you think. I really want to know.